Funding for Love to Paint with Mimi was provided by Agnes Gund. Utrecht Art Supplies, celebrating 60 years. And by Kelly and Robert Day. Additional funding was provided by the following.
Hi, it's Mimi. Today we're going to do a painting of beautiful Hawaii, so grab your paints and let's get going. Ready, set, go. Here we go. Paint on paper. This is what creation is about. Woo, isn't that beautiful? This is the beach. Look at that green against that yellow. I mean, it just sings. We're dancing with this color. It's going across the page. I'm a shape maker. That's what artists do. They make shapes, they create color, they do all these incredible things. Oh, I love to paint. Welcome to today's show. Recently, I visited Hawaii, and everywhere I looked, I wanted to paint. Fortunately, I made sure I packed my sketchbook and my little watercolor kit. I'm going to show you today how you take a little purse like this and you have everything in it to make a sketch. First of all, I have a little tissue, and a tiny little watercolor pad, a little vessel for water, my wonderful watercolor kit, and water. We don't need much to make a painting. I did my first painting at a sacred Hawaiian site called Honaunau. It was so incredible to paint the sunset. The next day I swam with turtles. And then I went to paint on a beautiful beach. So we're in Apuna Beach, Hawaii, in this extraordinarily beautiful beach. I'm going to do a quick little sketch here, and then I'm going to take it home and do the full painting. We've got lava rocks, we've got ocean, we have beach, we have surfers. This is a Hawaiian scene. Oh, look at that color, it's so beautiful. So absolutely beautiful. I'm going to put a little yellow in there, actually. And we're trying to dance with this. And you see how it looks like a little bit of surf there? Now what we're going to do is paint a little bit of sky. Just to say sky, I'm doing this pretty fast. A few little indications of clouds, and that's it. Now, I think what I need is, I need to have along that horizon line a darker line. Because the sea is darker in the distance and gets lighter because it gets shallower as we come forward. So we've got these really incredible lava rocks that are they're the newest part of the earth. They are rough, they're rugged, they're beautiful. And we're carrying them to below the water line. And I want to make sure they look really rugged. So I'm looking at them and I want to make them jagged. They are jagged. If you sit on them, you'll know. So here we go. There's the lava rock. And then we're simply going to put, there we go. We're going to just put a little more dark sand or a little sand in the foreground here. Whoops! That's what I didn't want to have happen, but these things happen when you work in watercolor. So you just mop it up, work it off. And I am now going to just go back in with a little blue and make a little water line here. And we're going to put some waves out here. Now, the thing is, don't overdo it. It's so tempting. You have so much fun putting the paint down that you want to keep going. But you got to stop. When it looks good, stop. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get the little rigger brush, which is my dancing brush, and we're going to put some of these branches in the foreground. And we do this because it's a nice design element and it pushes back the whole painting. And then we have another one coming out here. And I'm letting this brush dance. I'm pushing in on it and letting up, and it works all by itself. I'm not deciding how these lines should go at all. I'm just kind of letting it happen. And these little dots here just make it a little more interesting. And this gives me a real indication of what I did today. Enough so I can go home and with the photographs and with this, I can do a painting. And I've had a great time here. A beautiful beach, wonderful people, very, very fantastic being in Hawaii. Wasn't that wonderful? Paul Cézanne said, painting from nature is not copying the object. It is realizing one's sensations. And that to me means my feeling of what I'm looking at. What does it feel like to look at the ocean? What do I feel when I see that tree? And it's that relationship that I'm putting down. Now I'm going to start off by telling you about the brushes we're using today. I'm trying to keep it really simple. Painting is simple. We don't have to have a lot of brushes. We don't have to have a lot of colors. We do need some brushes, we need some colors, and we need paper. So we're going to start with this wonderful flat brush. It's a 2-inch flat. I use that a lot. And then we have this wonderful round brush. But this happens to be a sable brush, which is the very best. But ox hair brushes are wonderful. The key is you want it to have a good point, a very sharp point when you wet it. And then we have this wonderful fan brush that's going to dance and make great foliage. And finally, we have my favorite little dancing rigger. So we're going to start off by putting in the sky. And, oh, I should probably mention the colors also. We've got my normal palette, which is ultramarine blue, phthalo green, alizarin, crimson, cambium red, cambium yellow, and we have 2 browns. Now I want, just for the fun of it, let's take a look at this wonderful cambium yellow. Look at that color, so incredibly beautiful. And we'll take the phthalo green because that's just to show you what these colors look like. They look dark there, but when you get them on the palette, they're not dark. And this is, by the way, a nice little plastic palette. It's got a lid to it. I put a sponge in there, wet sponge, close it up, and the colors stay moist for quite a while. Not forever. So we're going to start off, and we've got my ultramarine blue, and I'm going to start doing a wash. And we start at the top, and we're going to go right down the page to the horizon line. And usually at the top it's darker, because at the top, when we look straight up above us, it's darker. Off in the distance, down by the horizon, it gets lighter because it's further away and there's more atmosphere. Oh, I love putting this paint on. It's so exciting. Just think, about 2 seconds ago we had nothing on this page, and look what's happening. And I think that we're going to make it a little bit darker up here because when the paint dries, it dries lighter. Watercolor dries lighter. And it's so tempting not to put enough paint on. Look at the miracle of watercolor is just so incredible how you just lay it in. And this big brush is so wonderful because I can get a lot of big sweeps and I don't have to start nitpicking with a tiny little brush. It takes courage to use a brush like this, but once you get used to it, you are going to love it. Now, I'm going to start changing the color here a little bit, and we're going to start putting some of this phthalo blue in there to mix it up, because as it comes down, the color does start to change and it turns a little bit into the green. Now you see we've got a couple of those little white, they could be possibly clouds, but I think I'll paint them out. But watercolor also, you have these things called happy accidents, and you don't really know what you're going to get. And sometimes you get something absolutely wonderful that you hadn't planned on, and that's when you have to be very, very smart and leave it alone. Some people say that you need two people to paint a watercolor, one to paint it and the other person to say stop, because it becomes so much fun that you don't want to stop. And that's one great thing about this TV show, because I have to stop because I've got a time limit. Otherwise, I'd probably just keep going on and on. And now I'm putting a tiny bit of the phthalo green in there. It can be called Winsor green, phthalo green. There are different manufacturers. But when you're buying paint, buy the best paint you can buy. Do not buy student grade, because it doesn't last. The colors aren't as good. And the other thing is very important when you're buying supplies, buy good supplies, buy good paper. This is 140-pound cold press paper. And we're coming down here to the horizon, and I'm going to use the rule of thirds, which is 2/3 sky basically, and 1/3 the bottom of the paper, which is going to be the water. And you can see that it's getting lighter as we go down toward the horizon. Now, I think that looks pretty good. You can see some places we don't want it to get bubbles, so sometimes I go back in a little bit. But now that didn't work because I'm pulling up too much paint. But I think I'll leave it the way it is. I think it looks pretty good. It's always tempting. It's so tempting to go back in there and play. I think I can't help it. I'm going to go back in there and just try something like that. See, it's so beautiful. Now, the trick is not to overdo it. When it looks good, quit. And one of the problems with painting is it's so much fun that you don't want to stop. Now, you've seen me use my T-square. And I do this because I like a fairly straight line for the horizon. The horizon is generally pretty straight unless there's tremendous surf and the whole thing's whipped up in their waves, but this is not that kind of a day. Now, on the horizon in Hawaii, it's often very, very dark out on the horizon because the water is deep. So we're going to go in, and I'm using the ultramarine. I'm using a little of the phthalo blue. I'm going to put a little alizarin in there. It's the most beautiful color of that water. Just think, nothing for 2,000 miles around Hawaii. Now I'm going to go in, and I'm just going straight across. Oh, perfect. Now, whoops. You see how it's a little tricky here. I don't want to go over that line. And you see this is minor, but it's going over there a little bit. So I want it to be a straight line. And it's that beautiful, beautiful color. And of course, what happens with the water is as you get closer to the land, it gets shallower. And as it gets shallower, it turns greener because the yellow underneath of the sand and the blue of the sky make green. We know that. Yellow and blue make green. So I'm going to go in and get some green now. And I mix it a little bit with the blue. And I start going, oh, it's so beautiful. And that's not quite green enough. But you see how we have what could be some little waves back in there? That's what you call a happy accident, and you leave it alone. I may change it, but for the moment, I'm going to leave it alone. But I think what I want is I want this to be a little darker here because it's still pretty deep out there. And other things that change the water is the clouds. If you have clouds above, that can change it. It will look darker or lighter according to where the clouds are hitting. Now, I'm going to really get in there with some green now. And Oh, these greens are so beautiful. And so we're going to hit a little green in here. And then as we get even closer, I'm going to mix a little yellow with the green. And sometimes when the surf is coming in, the surf, all the energy of the water and the air will make the water green too. And we want to have a few little waves in here. And I think it needs to be a little more green. See, oh, look at that color. It's so beautiful. These colors are just incredible. And then we're getting, now I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, well, we're getting close to the shore. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to mix yellow and brown. So I'm getting, now I have to clean my palette off a little bit here. So I've always got a little tissue or a little paper towel. I also use the sponge to take up the moisture in the brush. And this is a lot about practice. How much moisture do you have in the brush? It just is practice. So here we have, woo, isn't that beautiful? This is the beach. There's the beach. And then we have a couple of little dancing. We're going to have a few little dancing lines in here. This brush is so incredibly beautiful. It's a thick brush. It holds lots of paint, but it also has a very, very fine point. So sometimes you have little lines like this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have some foliage in here, and then we're going to have this wonderful tree. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some foliage in. I'm thinking, how high do we want it? But we'll just start off, and we can mix all different colors in here. We can mix green, blue, brown. You know, if you really look at things, you're going to see that there's so many colors. So many colors. You have to put on these special rainbow glasses, and you see all these colors. Now I'm going to mix a little brown in there. And often I like to have it a little bit dark in the foreground because it pushes everything else back when you have it really dark in the foreground. And I'm going to go a little bit above here. Look at that. Look at this incredible brush. Look what it's doing. I'm not thinking this is a little piece of grass or this is a little growing something. I'm just letting the brush dance and do its own thing. How exciting is that? And now I need to find another brush because I'm thinking about making well, I don't have one here right now, so I was going to make a little square brush and make the trunk going up, but seeing that I don't have that, I'm going to have to make the trunk another way. Now I can make it with this, and I'm going to start off and I'm going to go like this. See, that works just fine. We're improvisers. If you don't have the right tool, you improvise. If you don't have the right color, you improvise. The main thing is to put something down. Now, I want this side to be light and this side to be dark because the light's coming from here, and I want to have a shadow coming across here. So I'm going to put a little bit of shadow in this side because that's the dark side. This is what you call a light source. You figure out where your light's coming from. So obviously, the light's here, so this will be light. It's dark over here, so that's dark. And then I'm going to make a little bit. It's fun to make different colors in here. We're going to make this a little bit more like this. And you see how it's rough edge there? But that would be great if that was, well, the light could be hitting the bark like that. But I think we'll just go like that. And then what I want to do is I want to dance in the foliage. Okay, now we are going to dance in the foliage. So it's light green. And we want to have it coming down. And I'm going to put a little blue in here. And we're going to have some coming over here. And up in there. And we're just putting any old color in that we happen to think would be fun. Oh, that blue is beautiful. Isn't this incredible? We want to make it a little bit darker, so we're going to go back in, make it a little bit darker in some areas here. And we want to have a little green over here too. Look at this brush. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. So, and I think we'll go for the fan brush. Here we go with the fan brush. And that other one was kind of like a fan brush. And here we go. It's so amazing. Look at this. And we're going to have some more in here. And I told you we were going to have a few little shadows going across like that. It's incredible. Now, we're going to go back in here. And we've got this incredible little rigger brush. And this is the most wonderful. I love this brush because it's so Chinese. And it's just a dancing brush. And you press it down and pull it out. And you really don't know what's going to happen with it. Now watch this. See, look at that. I just pressed it down, pulled it out, and we get these incredible little branches going out. And that's so beautiful. It looks like the light's hitting there. And then we have a little more of the tree up in here. And we're going to have, there we go. We got a little drip there. Nothing wrong with a little drip. And you can turn, sometimes you can turn drips into something wonderful. And we've got different colors. I want different colors for variety. And you know what I think we should do here? I think we should, just for the fun of it. You know how I like to just throw a little red in there just for the fun of it? A little bit too bright. But it's just to add a little color. And I think we need a little bit of this down here. Have a little of that. Oh, and I'll tell you, often this particular tree had all these little pieces of bark. So we're going to put some of those in there. And the way you can make a really dark is to use ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson will make a really great dark. And we want it a little darker there. And I think we need to have some more of these branches up in here. And I'm just looking at this. Oh, it's so beautiful. But I want to go over here. I don't want the eye going over there. We don't want it too light over there. And you see, I'll tell you something. I think that those two are too much alike. They're both coming off the trunk at the same place. So we're going to remedy that. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little green things there like that. And we will lower this down like this. See how clever that is? And then we have these going out. And I just want to get back and look a bit. And I see right here, we see the trunk too much right there separating. So we just put this in. And there were these kind of wonderful green foliage that went like that. So here we are. We have done another painting. And it's just so miraculous to do these paintings and to be able to, in my mind, go back to Hawaii. And now we are going to sign the painting. And now this is quite a decision here. What do we sign it? Because it's so darn dark everywhere. But there's a little light spot here. And that's where I think I'll sign it. And I'm going to use the rigger again. And this will show up. And of course, I'm not using any white, so I couldn't very well put white on there. So voila, and just sign up for an art class, watch the show, paint, but for heaven's sakes, do something fun, because creativity will make your life so incredible and enrich your soul. So go ahead, create. Thanks for joining me.
For more inspiration and to order DVDs, please visit mimisammis.com. Funding for Love to Paint with Mimi was provided by Agnes Gund, Utrecht Art Supplies, celebrating 60 years, and by Kelly and Robert Day. Additional funding was provided by the following: